on the filing of a cold case that is 28 years old that happened in 1996. Before I talk about that, I think this has a very sort of a complicated timeline. A background and a timeline is in order to give some context to who we're going to be discussing today. In 1996, there was a rape that occurred in Salt Lake County. In 1996, the Salt Lake County DA's office filed a sexual assault case against a John Doe who was not known to us at that time, but it was in the context of a DNA profile that was identified at that time. Simultaneously, in 1996, there was also a homicide that happened in West Valley City as well. And that investigation was separate from this case, which happened at this happened in Salt Lake City. And at that time, as time progressed, in 1999, there was yet another homicide that happened at the University of Utah, where the victim was Amy Quinton, as yet another separate incident that occurred. In 2002, there was a connection that was made based on DNA sample with the defendant, Mr. Young, which was matched back to the 1996 sexual assault case. At the time of that match with Mr. Young, he was at that time in federal custody out of state, being held on the allegation of murder of 3 sex workers in East St. Louis as a part of a federal prosecution. In 2008, Mr. Young was charged with the murder of Amy Quinton, going back to the 1999 case, and that case was filed out of this office. In 2009, Mr. Young was extradited to the state of Utah as his federal murders were dismissed based on evidentiary issues. When he arrived in Utah at that time he was then confronted with 2 cases, as I mentioned. One, which was the 1996 sexual assault cases, as well as the 1999 homicide that was filed in 2008 from the University of Utah. At the same time, during that same period, there was that West Valley homicide that had gone cold and was being worked. Because of the way the sequencing of the cases were, Mr. Young was tried by the jury on the sexual assault cases and was subsequently convicted in 2010 and sentenced at that time to 30 years to life at the Utah State Prison. However, in 2012, the 1996 homicide case that was from the University of Utah was dismissed due to some evidentiary issues that arose, some alibi issues that came out, but that dismissal was without prejudice, and that it continues to be an open and ongoing investigation being conducted even as we speak with the Salt Lake City Police Department. This brings us back to that separate homicide from 1996 that happened in West Valley City, which is the subject matter of our gathering here today. And let me just say, there is a presumption of innocence that applies, and that is the nature of our due process, and these are the allegations. But today, as we speak to you, the Salt Lake County DA's office, with the help of the West Valley Police Department, filed 1 count of murder, as well as 1 count of aggravated kidnapping, and 1 count of aggravated robbery, going back to on or about December 9 of 1996. This is based on the following facts. That the statement of police officer Gray, that on December 9 of 1996, at the hours of 21:54 hours, officers responded on a report of an auto pedestrian accident that occurred at 3100 South and 5300 West in Salt Lake County. A female was found in the roadway unconscious and not breathing. The female was declared deceased on the scene and was observed wearing a Pizza Hut employee uniform. Employees from Pizza Hut identified the female as Lisa Redmond. Lisa left the Pizza Hut store in her 1994 GMC extended cab pickup at 21:43 hours to deliver pizza to the Comfort Inn near the airport at that time. Lisa's GMC pickup truck was missing from the scene where she was found in the street. The statement of West Valley City Police Officer Taylor that Lisa's pickup truck was located at 3291 South, 4440 West on December 10th, the next day, in front of a church which is approximately 1.3 miles away from the crime scene. During an inventory search of Lisa's truck, detectives saw signs of struggle in the cab of that truck. Blood was found on the front passenger seat, on the headrest, and on the interior of the near passenger door. A shoe print was found on the passenger door and was confirmed to belong to Lisa. Blood was found on the lower passenger side of rocker panel to the rear of the truck. There was also a blood spot located on the exhaust system on the passenger side, and blood was found on the components underneath the truck, suggesting that Lisa was also run over. Detectives located a knife behind the driver's seat, which contained a palm print, later identified as a palm print, and blood on a seatbelt buckle. They also lifted prints from inside the truck. The blood and prints were subsequently, as part of the investigation, sent to lab for testing. The statement of Lieutenant Halulich that in March of 2019, he received a report from the crime lab in which a DNA profile taken from the blood on a seatbelt buckle came back with a CODIS hit to Donald Eugene Young. A DNA standard, that is a follow-up, was obtained from Young and sent to lab for further comparison. The subsequent new sample was compared, and the crime lab tested the standard from Young and compared it to the DNA profile from the seat buckle. The blood DNA profile from the seat buckle was a match to Mr. Young. The statement of also West Valley Police Department forensic investigator Peterson that she manually compared prints lifted from the knife to a 10-print palm print bearing the name Young, and determined that the palm print on the knife was a match to Young as well. In 2019, Young was interviewed by detectives. Post Miranda, Young informed that his DNA and prints were found at the scene of a homicide that occurred in December of 1996. Young denied knowing or having any involvement with Lisa Redmond. Young denied being in any truck at this time, and claimed that it could not be him, as he was not in West Valley at that time. Young also believed that the detectives were speaking of seminal DNA and not blood DNA. When Young was informed that it was blood DNA, Young stated that if his DNA and prints were on the scene, and if the detectives weren't interviewing anyone else, that he was clearly the suspect in this case. In November of 2023, detectives interviewed Young again. Post Miranda, Young denied any involvement with the case and could not explain why his DNA was found inside of the truck. Young also admitted to using UTA buses to get around in 1996. During the investigation and the further follow-ups, the detectives have been working on and learned that Young worked in the area of 2100 South and 4400 West, the border of Salt Lake and West Valley, approximately 4.3 miles from the Pizza Hut in question. The detectives located at least 2 bus stops near the Pizza Hut location where Lisa was employed. The further information as part of the investigation from Dr. Ed Lease with the Utah State Office of Medical Examiner conducted an autopsy on Lisa Redmond. And Dr. Lease stated that Lisa's cause of death was blunt force injuries to the head, torso, and extremities. Dr. Lease also stated the manner of death as homicide. So based on that, we filed the charges that we did. And I just want to take a second to again thank the partnership with West Valley City Police Department and Chief Jacobs for their continued work with this, with our office, and working collaboratively. And just want to give some time to the Chief as well to address this as well.
Thank you, Sim. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to thank the many detectives and the many work hours that have gone into this case. The detectives have worked long and diligently so that this cold case could be solved. Many detectives have worked this case, and justice for Lisa and her family has been a long time coming. So I appreciate all the efforts that have gone into this, again, with partnership with the district attorney's office, that we can bring resolution to the family and resolution to this case. And with the advances in technology, we've been able to accomplish many of these missing pieces in this case. This was a genuine whodunit from the beginning. There was very little evidence or leads, very few leads in the beginning to follow. So this case did go cold eventually. But 28 years later, after diligent work and continued efforts on cold case work, this case has come to this resolution. So we thank you for your efforts. Thank you very much.
And again, I just want to thank the great work between our office and the West Valley City detectives and homicide team. And these cases are very important because when a crime like this happens, and as the chief mentioned, there's a whodunit, we don't know who it is. There's always a shadow of terror that's left in the community. And there can be no peace for the family, the family members and the victims who have lost a loved one. And there's also no peace for our community. So hopefully with the filing of these charges today, we can start that process for justice and for some peace and closure for our community and our family. With that, we'll come to an end and be happy to answer some questions.
So was it the advances in DNA that helped put a bow on this, I guess? Or you had the DNA back in 2002 and even questioned in 2019. Why now charges? What's happening in between?
Well, I think there is one, advances in technology, but also that there were samples that were left there and they thought they had exhausted looking at all the samples that we assumed was this blood from Lisa. But these other pieces that were there were not tested all the way through. So it was a submitting of those samples. Then it was also the matching of that and finally identifying a profile. So, you have a person who is here, who's engaged in some alleged criminal conduct. He's gone out there and it was getting that DNA sample because of the sex assault case and getting that logged up, but then doing the work of testing some of those samples that were not tested. And so it's putting those pieces together.
And Chief, can you say, was that just new eyes on a case who went back and said, hey, we haven't tested this sample yet?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with when you have new detectives, they have new perspectives, and that does help with resolving these cold cases.
And have you had several detectives, I guess, or how? The one that finally put it all together, how long has he been working, or has she been working on the case?
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure.
I know that there were several detectives who work, and I think that's one of the reasons why cold cases are done. The whole theory behind cold cases is that you can have an incident that occurs and you may not be able to, and you feel like you've exhausted everything. And coming back to it after a period of time with a new set of eyes, you look at things in a different perspective. And that is tried and true in all of those cold case teams that are there. I know that there were certainly different people from our office that were working there, and there were a round of different detectives who came and worked at it as well. But it was bringing that information with a new set of eyes and working those cases again. That's what led to just good old-fashioned police work.
And I believe at the time of her death, she had 2 young children, who I'm guessing are adults now. Can you talk to them? And can you share anything they had to say?
We have been in touch with the family as far as the family statements. They're just requesting privacy.
And I know that certainly our law enforcement partners have been in touch with them, and so they were going to let them know that this was happening today, as I said, as we're filing this. And then, of course, as the case is filed, then it's a case and prosecution from our office, and then, of course, our counseling unit will also be very involved in this as well.
So how many cases is he suspected in?
So, that's a great question, and that's why I think it was important for me to lay out the timeline. Again, let me underscore the fact on the case that we're filing, these are allegations, there's a presumption of innocence. But as we worked and investigated this, as I mentioned to you, there was the 1996 case that we prosecuted. That was the sexual assault case. There is now, as of today, the filing on the 1996 homicide case that happened in West Valley. There was the 1999 allegation of a case that we filed that was dismissed for evidentiary issues and continues to be an open case that happened at the University of Utah. We were aware of at least that there were allegations of the alleged murder of 3 sex workers in East St. Louis when we filed our case, but that case was dismissed because of evidentiary issues and also because of witness issues that subsequently went as well. That's what I am aware of in terms of that, and I think it was important because he was here, he was gone there, and there were multiple different jurisdictions with multiple different entities that were involved in this. But that's what we're aware of.
Is he still a suspect in the Annie Quinton murder, or has he been completely cleared of that?
What I can say to you in regards to that case was dismissed without prejudice. That case continues to be an open and active investigation. I know that Salt Lake City PD is working on that. I know that our prosecutors continue to work on that, and we have not given up on that. But beyond that, I wouldn't want to say anything else.
You're not going to say he's been completely ruled out or anything like that?
And I'm not going to say that because it's an open and active investigation, and we believe that we had the basis to file the first one, but we continue to work that case to address those deficits that were identified in that.
Has he been in Utah since he was released from, or like recently, or when he came and interviewed back in 2019?
As I mentioned, he was brought back and extradited back in 2009 based on the John Doe sexual assault case that was filed in 1996. And so because he was brought back on that extradition, and then also there was the filing in 2008 on the allegations of the University of Utah homicide that happened. And because of those 2 active cases, the sexual assault case was tried first, went to jury on that, and was subsequently convicted and then sentenced to 30 years to life at the Utah State Prison, where he's been from that moment on.
So that's where he's at.
Yeah,
right now.
yep, absolutely.
Did the fact that he's already in prison factor into, getting these pieces together? And, you talked to him in 2019, but here we are in 2024, officially filing these charges.
Absolutely, I think that's a great question. And also remember, at the end of 2019, we also had, in 2020, we also had something called COVID. But I think your point is well observed. We knew where he was. And I think there was a commitment from both law enforcement and the prosecution to make sure that we do this as diligently as we can. We want to be as thorough as we can. And there is still ongoing work that continues to happen. I think there's sometimes the perception that when the prosecution files a case, that the law enforcement work ceases or we stop doing work on there. It is something that is continued to be worked, and we continue to work those cases, but we wanted to make sure we got to a point where we were as comfortable as we could be, and we feel very comfortable with the thoroughness of the work that has been done thus far and has gotten to us. So we felt that we could take our time, but at the same time, this was now the time to go ahead and file. We were not in a rush, I guess, because of that. Yeah.
Do we have any idea of motive? Are these random people being targeted?
Do you want to answer, or should I?
Go ahead.
Okay. Again, I think that, whenever you start talking about motive, you start to speculate. What we are focused on is that we have the death of one person here, and we believe that we have objective evidence that creates sufficient probable cause, but also the quantity and quality of evidence that is there the warrant the filing of charges. Again, what I shared with you objectively is what was part of the public record. So we know that he certainly was here, although he had said that he wasn't here, and we have evidence that puts him here. We certainly know that objectively, as a matter of public record, that there was allegations and convictions related to sexual assaults that happened here, as well as allegations of at least 2 homicides where he was a person of interest. And then certainly allegations of where he was a suspect in a federal prosecution that subsequently was dismissed in East St. Louis with 3 sex workers. So we know that that is the objective history that we're aware of. That is part of this, and our focus is on this homicide.
I guess I should have asked, did he and Lisa know each other or have any prior, like, contact or interaction that anyone would have known of?
Nothing that we know as of right now that made a connection, other than, as we stated in our probable cause statement, there was certainly the proximity of location, both in terms of where he was allegedly working at that time versus the proximity of the Pizza Hut, as well as we stated, that he traveled by bus routes. There were some bus stations that were in the close proximity of that Pizza Hut. So there was an overlap of proximity that brought that nexus together. And so it wasn't the 2 people who had no reason to be in there. So it was the good work from detectives who helped us piece that piece together, as we stated in our probable cause statement.
But you can't tell if this was random or you knew she drove.
We have every reason to believe that there is no known connection between the 2 individuals.
But you don't know, like, he knew that she drove that route from Pizza Hut or anything?
No. So if you're asking me, like, I know you, because we've had prior contacts, I don't have any evidence in regards to that. Yeah. Any other questions? Again, thank you, Chief, and thank you, West Valley, and thank you.
Got press release and the probable cause here. I'll be emailing these out.
Proximity of location, both in terms of where he was allegedly working at that time versus the proximity of the Pizza Hut,